FDA recently published a draft guidance to fresh produce growers and others to help inform them of how they are currently interpreting the produce safety rule. This is a draft guidance, and they are looking to industry to provide comments. The key to making informed comments is understanding what's in the draft guidance and how it differs from what has been published before. This video is the 7th in a series to attempt to shed light on these differences, and will only cover the first part of Chapter 7. Chapter 7, starting on page 93, covers Subpart L, Equipment, Tools, Buildings, and Sanitation. Section 1 of this chapter provides draft guidance on equipment and tools. Part A, at the top of page 94, recommends that you first identify all equipment and tools that are intended to or likely to contact your covered produce. For example, if you pack covered produce on a table attached to a wall and you find that the produce frequently touches the surface of the wall, both the table and the wall would be considered pieces of equipment that contact covered produce. The guidance states here that you must use equipment and tools that are of adequate design, construction, and workmanship to enable them to be adequately cleaned and properly maintained. FDA recommends that you use equipment and tools made from non-porous materials. If wood, fabric, foam, or other porous materials are used for covered activities, they must be designed in a way that they can be adequately cleaned and maintained. You should evaluate whether or not your equipment and tools allow for access to all components for cleaning, maintenance, and inspection, and whether or not they limit the potential for moisture or organic material to accumulate within the components and transfer contamination. At the bottom of page 95, it states that equipment and tools must be installed in a way to facilitate cleaning and maintenance of the equipment in all adjacent spaces. Personnel should be easily able to access all food contact surfaces, equipment framework, and other relevant parts of the installed equipment, as well as floors, walls, ceilings, and other equipment in the immediate vicinity. You should periodically assess the equipment for any defects. If equipment or tools are damaged in a way that they cannot be adequately cleaned and properly maintained, you should repair or replace it. As stated on page 96, equipment and tools, including food packing materials, must be stored and maintained to protect covered produce from contamination and to prevent attracting or harboring pests. You should ensure that equipment and tools are clean and dry before storage. If equipment is stored outside or in a partially enclosed building, any openings should be closed or covered to reduce the potential for pests to enter. The produce safety rule requires you to inspect all food contact surfaces of equipment and tools that are used in covered activities as frequently as reasonably necessary to protect against contamination of your covered produce. You should look for signs of potential contamination, such as visible soil, food residue, or grease, and determine whether maintenance, replacement, cleaning, or sanitizing is necessary. Here on page 98, the draft guidance lists factors you should consider when determining your inspection frequency, including the materials used, the cleaning process and treatments used, the storage conditions of the equipment or tool, and so on. Some equipment and tools may need inspections more frequently than others. On pages 99 through 103, the draft guidance provides examples on how a farm can evaluate their equipment and tools using the principles and recommendations discussed so far. In each example, the farm visually assesses their equipment and tools to ensure they are of adequate design, construction, and workmanship to enable them to be adequately cleaned and maintained, determines whether the seams on food contact surfaces are smoothly bonded or maintained to minimize harborage or growth of microorganisms, determines whether the equipment and tools are stored and maintained to protect covered produce from being contaminated and to prevent them from attracting and harboring pests, and determines whether the food contact surfaces are inspected and maintained as frequently as reasonably necessary to protect against contamination of covered produce. At the bottom of page 103, the guidance says that you must inspect, maintain, clean, and sanitize all food contact surfaces of equipment and tools as frequently as reasonably necessary to protect against contamination of covered produce. You must also clean non-food contact surfaces of equipment and tools that are subject to Subpart L and used during harvesting, packing, and holding as frequently as necessary. On page 104, the guidance defines food contact surfaces as those surfaces that contact human food and those surfaces from which drainage or other transfer onto the food or onto surfaces that contact the food ordinarily occurs during the normal course of operations. An example they give is that the fine mist of water from nozzles of a spray bar over a conveyor belt containing covered produce contacts the bar itself, which results in water dripping from the bar onto the produce. Here, the farm should consider the spray bar a food contact surface. It's recommended that you perform deep cleaning and sanitizing on a periodic basis. Cleaning methods can be broadly divided into wet cleaning and dry cleaning. Wet cleaning, which involves the use of water and cleaning solutions, is usually the most effective method. Dry cleaning, which involves mechanical action for the removal of organic material, is preferable for dry, low-moisture environments. The guidance defines sanitizing as adequately treating cleaned surfaces in a way that reduces and/or destroys microorganisms without adversely affecting the safety of the product. Sanitizing can include the use of hypochlorite, chlorine dioxide, iodine, hot water, steam, dry heat, or ultraviolet light. Here on page 106, the draft guidance lists factors that may influence the effectiveness of cleaning procedures. This includes the pressure of water or air used during debris removal, the material of the surface to be cleaned, the force and duration of physical scrubbing, the type and concentration of the cleaning agent, the contact time of the cleaning solution with the surface being cleaned, and the characteristics and quantity of the soil and debris on the surface being cleaned. On page 107, the guidance also lists factors that influence the effectiveness of sanitizers, including the material of the surface, the type, duration, application method, temperature, and concentration of the sanitizing treatment, the contact time of the treatment with the surface being treated, and the characteristics of the water you use to prepare the sanitizing agent. At the bottom of this page, they provide an example of a step-by-step cleaning and sanitizing procedure. On page 108, the draft guidance provides a list of factors to consider when determining the frequency of cleaning and sanitizing. You should consider visual observations of the rate of accumulation of soil and debris, whether the surface is a food contact surface, and whether the equipment or tools are also used for excluded produce. You should think about the potential for contamination of the equipment or tool during use. For example, more frequent cleaning and sanitizing may be necessary if it regularly contacts soil than if it is away from the soil. Ambient temperature during use of the equipment and tools is important to consider, as the rate of bacterial growth increases as temperature increases. You should also look at the design, construction, and workmanship of the equipment and tools, and the results of any testing you perform, such as results showing high levels of microbial indicator organisms. When it comes to transporting equipment, here on page 110, the draft guidance emphasizes that equipment such as pallets, forklifts, tractors, and vehicles that are likely to contact covered produce must do so in a way that minimizes the potential for contamination. Equipment used to transport covered produce must be adequately cleaned before use. Instruments used to measure, regulate, or record temperatures, pH, or other conditions in order to control or prevent the growth of microorganisms must be accurate and precise, adequately maintained, and adequate in number for their designated uses. Accuracy is how close a device's displayed measurement compares to the true value, while precision is the consistency among individual measurements displayed by an instrument under the same conditions. As part of your maintenance activities, you should perform periodic accuracy checks to ensure your instruments are functioning properly. Documentation that accompany instruments often contain information on the instrument's accuracy. Calibration involves comparing an instrument's displayed measurement against multiple true values and notating how much the measurement deviates from the standard. Calibration is important to ensure accurate results that are consistent over time. When the rule says that instruments must be adequate in number, it means that you must have enough instruments on your farm to facilitate measurement. They should be conveniently located so they are available when needed. For example, if you have multiple growing or packing locations, you should have enough test kits placed at each of these locations so personnel can check the strength of a sanitizing solution when necessary. When making comments on the guidance, keep several things in mind. Reference the section of the rule you have a particular issue with. Be specific about the issue you are presenting. Avoid ranting. Offer alternatives to interpretation. Remember that the law is not changing or going away. This represents how the government interprets the law. The draft guidance covers all aspects of the produce safety rule except Section E, agricultural water. Public comment on this draft guidance is being accepted until April 22, 2019. Michigan State University Extension encourages looking into this guidance and commenting before the deadline.